Hey, Liberty North, AP Psych. Good morning. I was getting a message live streaming wasn't available. So I don't know what the heck we would have done then. Just done the afternoon one probably. So hey, good morning. It is Wednesday. I do this for my own benefit, April 8th, so that I keep track of the days and what's going on. Welcome back to Personality. Chapter 15. Move this here. There we go. Today we are going to be talking about AP Learning Targets number 1 and 5. So again, we have finished our theories. You should have 5 theories there. Each theory should have at least one historical figure that you need to remember and know. Most of them are already in your AP notebook from previous chapters. And then some of the historic ones have 2, behaviorism and humanistic theory. Okay, so we're going to continue on with our chapter 15 lab. So go ahead and get that out. And what you're going to do is you're going to add this back to number 5. Okay, so because of some positive feedback from students, they were interested in birth order, which is a fascinating subject, but they wanted to take the part 2 of this to kind of validate, if you will, as we move forward. And prove reliability to which birth order they kind of rank themselves as. Okay, so and I'm going to show it up here again. So on your chapter 15 lab, go back to number 5, which is the humanistic trait test. Okay, and we're going to give you part 2. So I'm going to give you the other half, the minuses of the family zoo, and see how you rate yourself. All right, so you're going to number 1 to 15 again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 15 kind of minuses traits. And then you have to rank them 1 to 15. So 1 being most descriptive, most like you, to 15, least like you. Okay. Now this one's a little bit harder, and this definitely is a humanistic test because these are kind of minus traits, if you will. So they're kind of traits that we would probably prefer not to have. However, again, we do have some, and we do have them. And self-concept is knowing what they are. Self-efficacy also is knowing what they are and then accepting what they are. So again, what I have is I have 5 traits from the firstborn, 5 from the middleborn, and 5 from the lastborn, based on the family zoo. Okay, and then you'll have 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes to actually rank them 1 through 15. Okay, and I'll read them here. Try to get it to where I don't mess up here. Okay, so perfectionistic, driven, critical, stubborn, moody. Okay, so driven would be, motivated. Critical would be, always evaluating, critiquing other people and things. All right, then we have easily embarrassed, or you could just put embarrassed. Internalizer, so basically you hold things in, you keep things inside. Inferior, trapped, unnoticed. Okay, and then we have impulsive, disorganized, rebellious, irresponsible, and self-centered. Sorry. I worked out this morning and my arms are shaking still. So perfectionistic, driven, critical, stubborn, moody, easily embarrassed, internalize, inferior, trapped, unnoticed. Okay. So there are 15 here. Okay. So again, and just write those down anywhere, and then you're going to move them over into your rank, okay, of yourself. Ooh, McDonald's. Buy 1 Happy Meal, get 1 free. Okay. All right. So you have 2 minutes to move these 15 traits into your ranking of yourself. 1 being most. And again, you can scratch out, move them, however you want to do it. So if you want to just write them down real quick and then move them around, however you want to do that, but you just got to take 2 minutes. So you got 1 minute left. You got 20 seconds. And stop. Okay. Again, the easier that you are able to rank these, the better indication are that you are developing a solid self-concept and also a solid sense of self-efficacy. This one actually is much harder than the first one. It's much harder overall for people to rank kind of minus traits, if you will, than it is to rank positive traits. So this actually has a huge self-efficacy component to it, just based on being the other dimension of ranking personality traits. Okay. All right. So and then I'll show you how you wrote them down easily so you could know which ones are firstborn. So the top 5 are firstborn traits. The middle 5 are middleborn, and then the last 5 are lastborn traits. Okay. So even in this, you can kind of see that they are better at profiling the first and the lastborn. Okay. And the middleborn, it gets a little bit harder as those terms are just a little bit more general. They're not as succinct. They're not as neat, if you will, in recognizing the traits. So, which basically is very similar to birth order research. Okay. So first, middle, last, or youngest. Which again, research for these two are a little bit better, and only child. All right, so you kind of see that, and then again, you can test the reliability if you want of, again, the birth order rankings that we did yesterday. So you could add those into the profiles for firstborn, middleborn, and lastborn, or youngest, and kind of see what you think. Again, this is a much more general birth order theory. Hopefully, again, if you're interested, you can research it and get more specifics. Now, again, you're going to do the same thing with the list of 15. So you're going to draw a line after number 5 and draw a line after number 10. Okay, so 1 through 5 has a specific analysis, 6 through 10, and then 11 through 15. Okay, and it's the same thing as we did before. So if you want to label them, if you don't remember, so the first 5 are your surface traits. Okay, the first 5 are your surface traits. So 1 through 5 are surface traits. So these are the traits that probably most people are going to use to describe you. That's mostly what they see, but those can also change per environmental influence. The middle 5, 6 through 10, are your source traits or your core traits. Okay, that's the main dimension of your personality right now. And then the last 5 are your self-actualizing traits. Okay, your developing traits. All right, so 1 through 5 are surface, 6 through 10 are source or core traits, and then 11 through 15 are your developing, actualizing traits. Now, that gets a little hard with these because you think that nobody's going to actualize those. So now there might be some in here, like driven, perfectionistic, rebellious could be one. There are some in there that probably you would actualize, but it's also much harder to get a reliable assessment with this with actualizing traits when you're talking about negative. So I think normally if you take the humanistic rating tests, and tons of them have the negative traits because they want you to be aware of that side of your personality as well. And that helps you reach self-actualization because that helps you identify them. But as far as the last actualizing part, they probably leave that out. Okay. So once again, these are going to be core and surface traits, right? Okay. So you're going to list down at this rate, this assesses surface and source or core traits, right, on your lab. Okay. All right. All right. So today we're doing learning targets number 1 and 5. Okay. So basically 1 and 5 ask you, how do we research personality, and then how do we assess personality? All right. So that's 1 and 5 together. Okay. All right, so we need to go back. When we talk about research, we need to go back to the fundamentals that we learned in chapter 1 and that you have done on your journal critique, right? We want our research to be reliable, want it to be valid, and then we also have to standardize it, right? Okay. Reliability is, can it be repeated? And if it's repeated, will I get the same results? So this would be like, and they hire people to standardize these tests as well. And actually, I love the statistical character match personality, because if you go in there now, you can kind of see that they ask you if they can ask you further questions for the research. Again, what they're testing is they're standardizing the results. You know, basically, do the traits match the character? They want to get those correct, right? And then what they're also doing is they want you to come back and keep taking it, so that they can make sure that you're getting the same results every time, okay? So obviously, most of these tests, if not all of them, can be repeated. The ones that are going to be harder are like the ink blot test, which really there isn't, I mean, that's pretty much a confidential test. There are tons of ink blots out on the internet, but the analysis of those are kept secret for the Rorschach ink blot tests. Same thing for the TAT. I mean, we'll be able to interpret it generally. But specifically, those are kind of a little bit harder to give and repeat, okay? But so far, you know, this test right here is very reliable because, number one, you can retake it. And so far, people are saying that every time they take it, they're getting the same character, okay? Or maybe same top 3 characters. So I took it 3 times, and each time my top 5 characters were the same. So now they might have been switched in order or whatever, but they were the same. So it's over and over. Valid, okay? Valid is it measuring what it's supposed to measure? Are we measuring personality, okay? And specifically here, the answer is which traits do you want to measure? Do you want to measure core, source traits, or do you want to measure surface traits, okay? So most of the tests we have done have measured surface traits. So we want to make sure that we have, at the end of the test, we have an accurate, repeatable indication of your personality profile. Can it give you an accurate profile, okay, that can be repeated and that you're going to get over and over and over, all right? So you see it. So can it be repeated, and will I get the same results? And is it truly measuring personality? Is it measuring core traits or surface traits? Now, the issue we get in with validity is really with the core traits, the source traits, because again, we're having problems agreeing on what those actually are. You know, we agree that E and I are 2 of them. We also agree on optimism, pessimism. And then after that, it's kind of, there's some type of thinker, feeler, sensor, intuitor. There's some type of that in there as well. But other than that, it's really, if you take these trait tests, they're all measuring different core traits. So you have unstable and stable, you have neuroticism, the big 5, you got openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism. Okay. So we do differ there, but whatever we pull out to be our traits, we want to make sure that we actually are measuring those traits. So is the test created in a way that it's actually going to measure introvert versus extrovert, optimist versus pessimist? Is it actually, are the questions leading you to those results? That's validity, okay? So it's not just overall, does it measure personality? does it measure specifically the traits that we're trying to assess, okay? And then standardization, people have to take it, okay? So again, if you go on for my personality scavenger hunt, which I hope that you do, it's majorly rewarding. There will be quick trip prizes for the top 3 groups. And then also a huge extra credit, all right, if you get that done, and you can identify my personality profile in those areas that are listed on it's under assignments now. I'm sending out hints via Twitter. Actually, there's a hint in the thumbnail for today. But they want people to take these tests. So one good thing that I hope you do from the scavenger hunt is I've got the links there to a Myers-Briggs, the Big 5, the Enneagram, the statistical character match personality. And I hope that you just take it, because number one, you help their research, right? They're standardizing it. They want thousands and thousands of people taking these tests so that they can then make sure, are we measuring the aspects of personality that we want to measure? And can people repeat it? And are they getting the same results? Okay. All right. So, and if you notice, most of those are backed by research grants. So I've kind of sent you to the institutes of each one, which means that they have a research group dedicated to tracking the results and so on and so forth. Now, with the statistical character match personality, it's very fun, but you can see the experience of rating it on a scale. And then actually the questions are based on research. You know, they ask your name, your age, or not your name, your gender, your age. Okay. I can't ask for your name, obviously, confidentiality. And then what they're doing is they're statistically analyzing all the data that they get to make sure that they have a reliable and valid test. Okay. All right. So in creating the assessments, you know, there's a lot of research that goes into those. And that's why you hear about some of these tests over and over and over, because they are considered reliable and valid core dimensions. Again, nobody's going to argue that any of these tests that I have you take, people get the same results over and over and over, and they think that they are accurate. Okay. They think that they are accurate. Okay. So now, not perfect. There's always room for improvement, which is why we have the research part of it. Okay. All right. Also in the process, so when we assess, okay, so when I take a personality assessment, an inventory questionnaire, okay, factor analysis is kind of big in both of these. Okay. And we've talked about factor analysis. Factor analysis is a statistical procedure in which I try to find the commonalities of data. All right. So it's kind of like if you want a code breaking, you're kind of looking at all this data and you're trying to pull out the common elements in each data item. So what they're saying here is, again, especially when I get to validity of the specific traits that I want to measure, I'm finding those traits from factor analysis. Okay. So, you know, like extrovert, introvert, you know, I'm finding that everybody who is rated an extrovert is outgoing, social, loves interacting with people. Okay. That's factor analysis. And everybody who's introverted is energized by the internal world. Okay. They tend to be reserved. They need time away. They're energized by private time. Okay. So so I can group all those together, but if I pull them down, I'm saying, okay, here are all the traits that people who are extrovert are showing, that they're reporting. Okay. That's factor analysis. All right. And so that's kind of how I get my core traits, if you will, my source traits. Because that's the other thing is you have to do is like, okay, we can't test for all these hundreds of personality descriptors that we have. We want to try to find the core source traits, and we know there's not that many of them. So let's pull them down. There's data. Okay. Feelers are usually they go by their gut. They have feelings. They have discernment. Okay. And those are things that are linked together that you pull out of the data, which again is factor analysis. Okay. So we see it used a lot in personality, and it's used a lot in research, but a lot in personality, because again, we're trying to find out what surface traits stem off core traits, and we're also trying to pull the core traits out of the hundreds of traits that we have. Okay. Obviously, statistics, regression analysis. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but that's the other thing that you're going to see here. Is they actually let you look at some of the mean statistics. So when you take it and you're looking on your results page, there's a statistics tab that you can also hit on there, and it kind of shows you kind of what they're doing, and their data is ever moving. So that's another reason to take it. It's because what happens after you take the test, they'll ask if you want to continue, and just take the 28 question one. I mean, if you have time, you want to take the 121, you can. But then what they're doing is they're gathering data on their characters to match to people. So the actual data on the characters is ever going as people continually to take this test. So they're continually to standardize it, okay, and increase the validity of it. And then obviously we have inventories. Now with inventories, we have two different types, okay, which I left off your lab, which I have added now, but I'll go back and just tell you for each one so that you don't have to worry about it. Objective tests, inventories, are basically rating systems. They're the ones that are Likert scales. Those are most of the paper and pencil tests that you would take that have you rate yours as an objective test, okay? Projective are going to be more like your unconscious tests. So like the walk in the woods, the Freudian stuff, the first test that we took about the animal, the color, so on and so forth. Those are going to be projective tests because basically you're giving input on stuff that's really not related to personality. And then the test is deciphering that for you, okay, and giving you an analysis, all right? So these are kind of like forced choice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, true, false, are you this, are you that? And then this would be, anything involving pictures, basically type of unconscious, unaware aspects of your personality, okay? So mainly these are kind of like Freudian, psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, and these are kind of trait. This is kind of what our trait tests use. However, like one thing that we like about the visual DNA test that I have listed a couple of days ago is that it's kind of a projective test of the big five. So they give you a lot of pictures, and you have to say, which picture describes you, describes your career choice, your future, and you're picking all these. I think you have 16 pictures, and you're picking a picture. So that would become, that's a projective test because I don't know for sure what the pictures represent. Okay. All right. So those are kind of the two types of inventories of which we use all of them, both of them, and at different times and in different situations, they're valuable. Okay. All right. So, yeah, so hopefully a lot of this was review with your journal critiques in chapter 1. This should have been review. Obviously, we've already talked about stats. So again, if you go back to that dispersion, we don't like our results dispersed. We don't like big gaps between data, right? We like them all clustered. And that's another thing that this one does. The statistical character match personality gives you your little scatter plot chart of your personality. Obviously, you're going to get sometimes results that are really far apart, which we don't like, right? We don't like that. We want them all kind of in a linear fashion one way or the other, okay? But we don't like them all over the place because that just means that they're dispersed. We have variance. We have high variance, which we don't want, okay, in our data. So it's really cool. You get to see the research and the assessment processes in this test is it is just really in its infancy. Now, it's the most popular test on social media and probably the #1 test taken right now because people just have heard about it. It's popular. It's very culturally relevant and, it's fun. And so people are taking it. But you can do the same thing on the links that I provided with the Myers-Briggs, the Big Five, the Enneagram. Those are all doing the same thing. They just have been doing it longer and have more data, right? More stats and more standardization by far. Okay. All right, so a couple announcements. Today is a little bit shorter. So I have moved the date back for all the personality assignments. So it's going to go ahead and be Friday the 17th. I just figured Wednesday was whatever. That's just kind of, so everything's generally due on a Friday. So we're going to put Friday, April 17th. So you have the rest of this week and all of next week to get personality stuff done. Now, I think we'll still probably go early next week on personality, and then we'll switch over to social psych, okay? But the assignments will be done. But again, you have your lab, right? You have your vocab assignment, and then you have your quiz, which I have now posted on Canvas under assignments. And the quiz is doing the vocab assignment, which is absolutely fine. If you want to just share it and send it in or take a picture of it, it's fine. And then your quiz, which you can do as a partner. And then I put in the scavenger hunt. So make sure you look at that scavenger hunt because there are quick trip prizes for that. But there's also big extra credit. All right. So if you get all of that information correct, and you can submit an answer more than once, but you're gonna get big extra credit. So kind of like Alyssa O'Hare, who was our set game champion, got a huge prize. Then those people will get extra credit. And everybody who does it will get extra credit, and attempts it will get extra credit. So if you need extra credit, then that'd be a good place to get it. All right. And then for those who actually get it correct, in the past, I haven't had 3 groups get it correct. So, but hopefully 3 groups will get it correct. They'll get quick trip prizes, and then they'll get some big EC from that. All right. Any questions on anything? Due dates, otherwise? Good morning, Miss Allie. No, yeah, the scavenger hunt actually runs through the rest of the semester. So it's something that you can be working on. And generally, I leave it open until I get 3 groups that get the accurate answer all the way through, which I think last year I only had 2, and year before 1, and then the year before I had 3 get it. So yeah, it's open for the rest of the semester, so through May 22nd. So because it is challenging, all right? I guess I'm a complex person. It's hard to figure out my personality. All right, any other questions? All right, hey, you guys have a good morning. Enjoy the sun and the warm weather today. Hope everybody's doing well. Again, as always, if you need anything, just contact me and let me know, and we'll work together. And again, as we are still in week 3, I hope everything's getting better. Okay, let me know if you need anything.